Hello, Stitchers. Welcome to Stitch Please, the official podcast of Black Women Stitch, the sewing group where Black Lives Matter. I'm your host, Lisa Woolfork. I'm a fourth-generation sewing enthusiast with more than 20 years of sewing experience. I am looking forward to today's conversation, so sit back, relax, and get ready to get your stitch together. Hello, everyone. Good day, and thank you so much for tuning in to the Stitch Please podcast, the official podcast of Black Women Stitch, the sewing group where Black Lives Matter. I know I say this every week, and I know y'all must hopefully believe me when I say it, because I am incredibly sincere when I say that I am excited to get with y'all every week and to have this conversation. And I am especially thrilled to be talking today with Malaysia Anderson of Lily's Creation. Malaysia's work is exquisite. I think her style is a combination, at least in my view, of African prints meets a kind of vintage look. She has these absolutely beautiful silhouettes in a variety of collections that she has designed and sewn and sold over the years. And so I am so happy to be able to welcome Malaysia to the program today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you guys.
I am so excited too. And I'm hoping that there's folks who are familiar with your work. And if not, I will include links to a variety of so many things that she has done. But I wanted to kind of begin with, where does your sewing story begin? How did you get started sewing?
Well, my sewing story began with my mother. My mother would make our clothes as a kid. I grew up in a time where, you ate dinner, had a bath, and was in the bed, whether you were asleep or not, by about 7:30 at night. And she would take that time to do all the things that she liked to do, which included sewing. And a lot of times she would make us dresses and things like that and hang them on our door all ready for the next day to be worn to school. And I just thought that was just, magical. And so as I got older, probably around about 9, 10 years old, I wanted to learn how to sew. I didn't necessarily want my mother to teach me herself how to sew. I felt like my mom probably would have cracked the whip a little bit, and I would have been like, nope. So we had 4-H in my town at that time. I live in Roosevelt, New York, and it used to be right above the European Bank that used to be in Roosevelt. And they offered a variety of classes, and one included sewing. My sewing teacher's name was Mrs. Taylor, and that's where I actually learned how to sew. My first year sewing under her tutelage, and then every summer thereafter, I would help her teach the other kids how to sew. And, she became a longtime family friend, and that's where my sewing began. And I would compete at State Fair up in Albany and compete to go. And I won my sophomore year in high school, and I would make my clothes in high school. And then my last year of high school, I decided I wanted to go to FIT, which was a daunting task because I wasn't, the traditional, I want to be a designer where I was drawing and designing. I just loved to sew, and it was just something I wanted to do. And my art teacher at the time, his wife was a teacher at FIT. So he asked her, basically, what are the criteria, for someone to try and get into fashion design at FIT? And then he would tailor my art classes around that to help me gain a little bit of drawing and design technique in high school so that I would be proficient enough to take the test. I knew that my sewing part, I knew that part was fine. It was the other aspects of like designing on the fly and the things that they made you do to get into FIT, which was really competitive. I don't know if they still do it that way, but you had to take a test of design an outfit on the spot and then bring an outfit that you've made and be interviewed and talk about that outfit and how you came to
Wow.
construct it. And I don't know if they still do it that way, but that is how they did it back then. And you're in a room full of, oh my gosh, maybe 50, 60 other people trying to get in into the design program. And to my surprise, I got in. And I what's interesting about that is I took design for my first year and a half, and it was intense, and my sewing definitely rescued me in many, many, many ways. But I wasn't a drawer. I wasn't a person who could like just illustrate this beautiful thing and then, you know, turn it into a garment. I was more of let me turn it into the garment and then draw it, which is not, how it's garnered in school. So I think by my year and a half, I kind of got frustrated. I thought that it would get beyond my capabilities of being able to handle it, and I ended up switching my major to fashion buying and merchandising, which was cool, but not as creative. So it just was different in that sense. So I had maybe 1 year and a half, almost 2 years of fashion design from FIT. And later on in life, I went back for pattern making because I wanted to understand fit and grading because I used to could take a commercial pattern and just I could mash up the patterns all together to create whatever the person was asking for. I understood how to grade across the sizes to get that fit, but I wanted to have a deeper knowledge of it. So I took pattern making and design, which actually helps in what I do right now. And that's kind of how it all evolved based off my mother putting dresses on our door when we were little kids.
That is fantastic. I mean, you described the first story you described definitely seemed magical. I definitely remember as a kid going to bed when I wasn't tired. But I guess my mama was tired of me. That was the
Pretty
point.
much.
It wasn't that, oh, it doesn't matter if three of y'all are tired or not.
Oh, she
I am
didn't care.
tired.
I'm tired,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
what I'm
exactly.
trying to do has nothing to do with you. So what
Yes,
you're gonna do,
yes,
and it was always this rule of don't be making too much noise.
right. Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. And sometimes I
yeah.
would be tired, and my sister would talk my ear off, and I would just be like, "Will she just please?" And other times, and other times
It
it was
is
like, "Why are we in here?" You know,
like, I think the sun is still out,
the
you
sun
know?
was still out in the summertime. The sun was still out, and my mother did not care. Okay,
Did not
she
care.
did not care.
And so this for this bedtime, of course, let her create magic for you all, right?
Yes,
You
yes.
go to bed, and next thing you know, on your door, it's like
A whole
a
new
new
dress
outfit,
is hanging on the
something for you,
door. Yeah.
something for you to wear. It's just that's just a beautiful story. And then what you've described for us is this transition from 4-H to FIT. Like that was such a quick a transformation. And what
Hmm.
sounds so beautiful about it is that you were able to begin your sewing time or your sewing story with a kind of formal instruction that then you started teaching other kids,
Yeah.
through 4-H, like you could be the assistant.
Yeah.
And I'll include links in the show notes, y'all, for 4-H. It stands for, I think, what's the one of the four? If you imagine a clover, and
Yes, it's the
each
symbol of the
leaf of the
clover.
each
Hmm.
leaf has an H, like heart, head, hand, and something. I forgot what the fourth one was, but it's about they do farming, they do sewing, they do all types of domestic arts is the wrong word, but it's just something about basic, almost like what it takes to kind of build your own homestead, kind of. What are the kind of things you're going to need? So I know animal
Right. It's
husbandry is a big
head,
part of
heart,
it.
hands, and health. That's what it is.
There you go. Thank you. See, spoken like a true 4-H'er. Um, and so that's the, and it's they do a lot of youth programs and summer camps and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then FIT is the Fashion Institute of Technology, which is in New York City. 4-H is all around the country, and FIT is the fashion school in New York. And I thought it was really cool that your high school teacher kind of had an in.
Mm-hmm.
Not to kind of give you the hookup necessarily, but to give you the training that could help you build your profile. So
Yes, he
these
gave
were
me the
essential.
guidance. Yes. Yes.
Gave you guidance, exactly. This isn't like I know her, let her in. This is not that kind of situation. But it's able you were able to say, okay, my sewing is already good. My sewing is solid. What else do I need? And so you had an art teacher who was able to say, okay, what you're going to need is some illustration skills. You're going to need
Mm-hmm.
this, you're going to need that. And then you can practice that and work on that. Now, did you end up using the sketching and illustration skills? Do you still use those kind of things today? Or are you
Uh,
more, or do you do more of the kind of pattern, is pattern making more of what you do now? In terms of the
uh,
skills you retained from your time in school.
I, how can I say? I think what I do now is I, I tend to buy my fabric first, and then build it from that. Sometimes, yes, I will sit and I will sketch out once I've gotten all of the pieces of fabric that I think I want to use for a collection. I will sketch out and say, I'm going to do a dress, I'm going to do a skirt, I want to do this top, I want to do pants, I do kind of do that. I also, if you follow me or go through my Instagram, I do actually keep pretty much the same aesthetic. So if it's a dress, it's gonna be a specific dress. So it could be either a remix dress or it'll be my Lily Afro Bell dress, and I'll just mix new fabric and new colors. So because I felt that keeping a consistent look inside the brand is what keeps people to know who I am, and then I would build around it. So maybe I'll bring in pants, or I'll bring in a blouse I've never done, or and maybe I may jazz it up with a different dress that I thought of. But the basic vintage style dress and the skirt, it's kind of like the staples, and then I build it around there. Um, and so I will sketch it out. Sometimes the fabric just kind of tells me it should be this or it should be that, and then I just decide like what kind of dress or what kind of skirt, or and then I also think about how everyone else will wear it. For me, even though I'm not tall, I have a just enough curve that I
Wait
can
a minute, you're
say
not
it'll
tall. Oh, I'm
no.
sorry. You are not tall. So one of the things I love to we're going to talk about, y'all, is on the list of things to discuss was her fashion photography. Because if you scroll through her page, she's got these gorgeous, gorgeous photos, vintage cars and on stairways, and and of course I want to get into some of the shoes, and she's got these beautiful, beautiful photographs. There is no way I thought you were anything less than 5'11". I
Oh
thought
no,
from
I
you,
am not
sure.
tall, and my
I
photographer
thought for
is the
sure you were
bomb.
tall. I thought this is news to me. I'm so glad you told me this, because if I ever happen to meet you in real life, I think I
You
would be
won't
so
be
shocked.
shocked.
I would just be like, wait a minute, this is not the same person, because the person I'm
Well, I
meeting is like
probably
6
will
feet
have on
tall.
heels now because I will wear heels to an event. I don't for that very reason. I am not tall, but and I have hips and I have a small waist, so it actually helps when I'm making something. If I can get it to fit me, because I'm very shallow, I have fit issues that if I can get it to fit me and look nice, I pretty much know everybody else will be able to wear it because I'm not exactly an easy person to fit. I'm not like straight or perfect or yeah, I'm not that. So sorry, not tall.
Oh my gosh, that is so awesome. No, I guess like you said, your photographer's the bomb, as well as the pieces that you put together. I wanted to ask you, how would you consider your Afro Bell dress one of your signature pieces? And I also like how you said you start with the fabric. What you were describing earlier about pattern making and how that became most useful for you, or in your current work right now as a designer. I thought that was really great because what we're learning now, at least those of us who are using Big Four patterns, they're now call it pattern hacking, and you can
Yes.
actually buy
Yeah.
a pattern and practice it. I think Simplicity has that pattern hacking line that gives you
Yeah.
instructions
Hmm.
on how to change things around, which is, things that you've learned in school. And I don't know, I just thought that was interesting that, this mix and match kind of thing is something that home sewers are now being encouraged to do formally.
Yeah. Yes. And I I think the commercial patterns, oh my gosh, they've come so far and long in regards to design and fashion that they're offering now. Because now, I'm like, well, I could just lay that down and make it. Okay. Whereas in the past, I used to be like, how many pieces? I mash up 4 patterns to get there. So
Wow, wow.
now, and that's just what I would. I just, if I saw a picture in a magazine, I could drape it. I did take draping. I have a draping form. But for offering things online, I feel like draping would take me too long. I wouldn't. It would be too costly to drape each and every piece for each person. So I had to learn
Right.
um, hacking and fit and measurements and things like that. I mean, someone can give me their measurements now, and I can tell if you're wrong or not just from looking at it. I can just be like, no, I think you need to take that again. That doesn't aesthetically make sense. You can't be an inch apart on your bust, waist, and hip. You're not a box. That's not possible.
Right,
So
right.
I think pattern hacking and understanding um, grading really helps. I think that's one of the challenges people probably have in using a commercial pattern is not understanding how to cut it to fit their size. They just take the pattern and let's say they'll cut an 8. I'm an 8. No, you're not. You're not an 8. You're not an 8. You're like a 14 in the hip, 10 in the waist, and an 8 in the
Yes,
bust.
exactly.
But you know, there's no guide in that when you get a pattern. They don't tell you that. They don't say before you touch this, you know,
Before you touch this.
look at the finish measurements. You look at the measurements on the back of the envelope, which are probably archaic. They
They
probably
are.
have not or updated that at all.
What did I think? I almost said something. It was something like if you are a size. I think they had something like for a size 16 or something was like I think like a 33-inch or 34-inch waist, and I was just like, I'm trying to understand where is this coming
That's
from.
not really a 16. That's really a 14.
It's just it was some kind of just
Yes,
weird thing
it's
that
very weird. Or it's like a, a 8 is really like a 28-inch waist in reality. But if you look at the
right.
pattern, you're like, where's the 28? Where is it?
Well, I don't have to
A
worry about a
12 is
28
like a
because I
31. Like if you're really like a true no holds barred 12, it's really like 31 inches is a perfect size 12 waist, literally. But if you're looking at the pattern, you're confused. Now you are 18. You're like, what? Uh, So you
and
have to, uh, the finish measurements is what you need, not the actual envelope, the actual finish. Where does it finish at? Because you take that amount and you compare it to your own measurements, and boom, now you know where to cut. Now you know how to cut it and not cut it wrong.
and I think that sometimes it seems like because sizing is so different from at
Mm-hmm.
least from ready to wear,
Oh yeah.
to commercial patterns,
Yeah.
that you can be a 12 in one person's size
Mhm.
or one company size, and then the same size you could be an 8 or you could
Mhm.
be a 14.
Mhm.
All of these things, like the numbers are just so random. And that's why I think it becomes so important, like you said, to measure for your measurements and to remember that no one is a standard body, and I think that that's
No.
something that I think
No,
that can be so stressful about sewing, unfortunately, is when you give the power to the pattern envelope,
Mhm.
um, to say, well, this is, you are imperfect because you are a blend of three different sizes. And it's like, no, I'm not imperfect. I'm just a human being. And this block was
Yes.
made for
Yeah.
someone who was a straw. And so
Well,
that's
actually, from
why,
1950, whatever. It's not even a new.
yeah, I like before
It's
people had, refined carbohydrates, I guess,
right, and
in
high
their
fructose
diets.
corn syrup. I mean,
Yeah,
help us
exactly,
out here.
exactly, exactly.
Mhm.
So people were shaped differently. Um, I wanted to ask about this when you say beginning with the fabric. It seems like you let the fabric kind of speak to you.
Yes.
Would you say that that's true? Because you have some absolutely stunning fabrics, and I wonder what is your process for looking at a piece of fabric and knowing what it needs to be?
But you're right in that I do let the fabrics speak to me. I find that African fabric, it has so much depth to it that I do try to keep the actual basis of the design simple so that you can actually see the beauty of the fabric instead of complicating it and then you lose it all. Um, when I am when I am buying fabric, I do buy what I like in a sense. Um, I have a tendency of color matching with my eyes without realizing I'm blending everything together. So I can buy a piece of fabric. Let's say which I'll be at BAM and they'll have a big African arts festival. I will see 12 yards of fabric and have no idea what it's going to be for, but I love it. I buy it. And as I go, I see stuff and I buy it. And then when it's time to form a collection, I'll pull out everything that I've bought and somehow there's a cohesiveness and color and it just happens very organically. Um, and then what I do is I kind of really look at it and say, you know what, that would make a really beautiful skirt, or this mixed with that would just make an awesome, dress. So I some of it is organic, just the fact that I how I interpret the colors in my mind, and then I kind of go from there. So I don't buy the fabric all at one time. I actually buy it in pieces and stages as I go along, and then um, build it. This spring, if I get to it, I hope. I actually bought my fabric from Spoonflower because I wanted to try
Oh,
something different. I always buy African fabric, and I was feeling a little frustrated with all of the flooding of African clothes that's in the market right now, that I wanted to just try something different. So all of the fabric that I have for spring is actually from Spoonflower. It's let me look up her name so I if when I say her name I actually say it correctly. Katie is the designer of the fabric that I picked. I actually follow her. Katie Cormanart. I actually
oh,
follow
Katie
her.
Cortman.
Yeah,
I know
Katie
who that
Cormanart.
is. Yeah,
Yeah,
Katie
I
Cortman.
actually follow her on Instagram. I love all of her. I love all her prints and splashes of color, and I just think it's just so amazing. And I thought it would be cool to actually use fabric that was made by someone else, as opposed to. So, and then I picked the different like cottons and chiffons and things like that. And I still ended up blending the colors together, even though, I still ended up doing it anyway. So if I lay it all out, they all look like an Easter egg rainbow.
Oh,
I
that's
could
awesome.
probably mix and match half of them together unknowingly. It's just the way my eye tends uh, to play with the color. I think that keeping it organic in that way, and I just feel like the fabric shouldn't be so disturbed. I've seen people do so many things with it that you almost disturb the fabric and it can't even really tell a story. And I kind of want to keep the artfulness to the prints. And that's kind of where I allow it talk to me instead of me dictate what it's going to be.
I think that organic process that you describe is really beautiful, and you can see that for your overall aesthetic, it's absolutely working. I was thinking about a post that you made back actually on my birthday, March 20th of this year, and you're wearing this fascinator that has like a net going down over your face,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else to call it. I think it's a
Oh, it's right.
fascinator,
It's a
and
fascinator. Mm-hmm.
and then you have the bodice of the dress is in this bold red with white swatches. And then the skirt is black and white. I think
Yes.
never in a million years would I have thought to put a black and white skirt with a red, white, yellow, and black top. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, what is it? Was there a particular story or something you were going for there? Because it looks absolutely perfect, but I never would have thought about putting those two things together. How do you get the fabric to um as you were saying, you don't want to disturb the fabric. I think that's a beautiful way to think about it. Let the fabric tell its own story.
Mm-hmm.
um how do you manage to put these pieces together um in a way that just works so perfectly?
When I with that particular dress, at the time I felt that my mixes were kind of doing the same thing. They were, same color, big print, little print, and I wanted something that was mixed but not expected. Um,
Yeah.
I know that black and white goes with pretty much anything. So I had loved the black and white print itself. And then I just happened to see this red and it has hints of black in it and yellow and white. And I was like, oh, that's it.
I
Because you
I
always,
found
people
you.
tend to wear a pop of red. You tend to wear like a pop of red with black or pop of red with white. So I was like, you know what? This is it. This is what I'm gonna do. And then when I bought it from a Etsy shop, I don't know if she's still on there. That was a long time ago. I have to look, but I bought it from an Etsy shop, and she didn't know what I was doing with it. And then when I told her, she was like, "Oh," I was like, "No, no, I'm mixing those two." She thought I was gonna mix it where my traditional way, where part of it's this and part of it's that. I'm like, no, the top is this, the bottom is that. And which was unexpected. I actually love that dress. I still have that dress. I love that dress.
I think there's a lot to love. It's
Yeah,
gorgeous.
it's just Sherry Shepherd has that dress. I love that dress.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, about like your
Mhm.
celebrity sewing. Like, what was that like? So we're going to take a quick break.
Mhm.
And when we come back, we'll continue talking with Malaysia Anderson about sewing for Sherry Shepherd, about the Etsy commercial that she did, and what she's working on next. So stay tuned. Hey, friends. know by now that I really appreciate a good milestone, and we are about to hit a really good one. Black Women Stitch is about to turn 2 years old. This is our second birthday coming up on July 19th, and we're just so delighted and so grateful for the growth of this community and for the flourishing of this podcast. So we want to make a few more wishes. You can find out more about these wishes in the show notes. I'll list them there, but let me just share a couple. Ones that circulate around the number 50. My 50th birthday was this year, and like many people, the celebration was a bit muted because of the plans had been canceled. But with the number 50 is still my year, and I am going to claim this year. And here's a couple things else I wanted to claim. 50 Patreon subscribers. Right now we have 26, and I would love to get to 50 by my birthday. We're already halfway there. I'd love to get there by the Stitch Please birthday, which will be on July 19th. So we've got some days. As little as $2 a month is really very helpful. So thank you so much for considering it. Also, 50,000 podcast downloads. We are very, very close to that, way more than halfway there. So I think it just takes a couple more little pushes and nudges to share the podcast to get us to that 50,000 mark. So thank you again for listening to this podcast. We never would have gotten to this point without you. Thank you for making that happen. And do check the show notes for more details for some of our birthday wishes. Welcome back, everybody. You are listening to the Stitch Please podcast, the official podcast of Black Women Stitch. And my guest today is Malaysia Anderson of Lily's Creations. And she's going to talk about her celebrity sewing, that the signature dresses and the things that she does in terms of color combinations and working with African fabrics and the Afro Belle dress is it reached the eye of Sherry Shepherd. And so can you talk a bit about what that was like? I remember seeing her wearing that on TV, and I was like, oh, I know the person that made that.
Yeah.
It was really exciting.
Awesome.
So can you, it was exciting for me, and I didn't even do it. So can you talk about that process?
It was actually, I never really actually looked for her or any celebrity to wear my items. She found me on Etsy. I actually didn't know it was her at first because she was buying under another name, and then she told me. I'm not sure how she found me. I don't know if she found me. We do follow each other now, so I don't know if it
I'm sorry. Could you say that last part again? Did you say you do follow each other now?
We do follow each other on Instagram now, and from that point on, but I'm not sure if she found me through Instagram or if she did a search on Etsy and found me that way. I'm not really sure which way. So it wasn't something that I like sought out, or it wasn't that. It was always just organic. It came to me, and all of not that I have a massive amount, but the few that I have had the opportunity to make things for, it's been very organic, where I'm approached with that, as opposed to me doing some sort of special thing to make that happen. And her first initial buy was, I believe, like some Belle skirt sets. I used to have a Belle's, and I still do it from time to time, just not as much. Where I have the matching Lily Girl T-shirt and the skirt that goes T-shirt and skirt set. I think that was her first one, and then she bought my Aya dress, and she has that dress is called the Malkia Belle dress, which is the red and white and black dress. And what's beautiful about her and my dresses is her shape is the perfect shape for that dress, because it balances her out. She's broader, and then she goes in and narrows out in the hip. So a fuller skirt on her balances out her top, which makes her waist look smaller. So she picked one, dress, like a high waist is good for her because it narrows her in, and fuller on the bottom fills her out because she doesn't have hips to fill her out, and it gives her the perfect hourglass shape in the clothes. Um, so it was just a very organic thing. Super exciting that she has a number of my pieces. She's really amazing person. Felicia Leatherwood has some of my pieces. Who does hair for like Issa Rae, and she's an amazing natural hair designer. I've always followed her, love her. So sweet, so very nice. Gugu Atkins, Erica Campbell's sister, has a few of my pieces, and it's always really organic. A lot of it came through Instagram and Etsy. I've been on Etsy for since 2013, and that really was the only platform I sold at. So it made it easy for people to find you because there's only one place to look. I do have my own website now as well, but I've had that one thing for a long time. But it was very, very organic, and I think that, you know, the Bible says your gift will make room for you and put you before great men. If you exercise that type of integrity in the things that in the gift that you're using, then things like that will just happen. You don't really have to manipulate it to happen. It just will happen on its own, and that gives it a sense of authenticity. And it's the same thing with the Etsy commercials, and that same thing. The Etsy commercial is hands down the best thing that's probably happened to me in a pandemic. So
Right.
hands
So
down.
can you talk about this? So I'm going to include a link to the Etsy commercial. Or can we? Is it clickable and linkable like that? I definitely want
Yes, it
to
is.
let people.
It's on YouTube. There's a short version and a long version of the commercial. It's on their Etsy page. If you I can also give you the link for it
Perfect. Because I think
so
that
that you have
I'm
it.
going to include all the links to things that we've been talking about here in the show notes, so people can kind of
Check it
can follow up and see these things for yourself. But the Etsy commercial I feel like I just learned so much about you. I thought it was just beautifully shot. I thought you looked amazing. And your passion for what you're doing really came through. Can you talk about how that came about? I know, for example, I know you said you've been on Etsy since 2013. So that's like 7 years from that, for 7 years now.
out.
And some say that it can be really difficult to make
Hmm.
yourself stand out on Etsy. And you managed to do that. So can you talk about how that commercial came about?
Okay. You're right. It is. I've been on it for a long 7 years. Yeah, that's a long time. Um, I think that Etsy has it's evolved. I think it is definitely probably harder now than when I first did it, and I feel like Instagram was easier as well. I feel that part of my build was I built through social media. So I drove the traffic to my Etsy shop through social media. So it's a 50-50 split. 50% came from Etsy, and my 50% came from me and consistency. So that was a big part. The Etsy commercial itself was really derived from a seller story that was done on me um, right after my 50th birthday. Um, and they came to my house and we shot the seller story inside of my room where I actually sold. You couldn't shoot there now because it looks like a fabric disaster, but then it was picture perfect. And so they took clips of that seller story and they put it in the commercial. So it when the seller story came out, I think the first thing that I actually really noticed, I was like, this looks like a commercial before it was ever even a commercial. Just the way it just was done, the interview process, and just certain aspects of it. The editing of it was just, it was amazing. And so while a couple of weeks ago, they reached out to me and said, they were doing a Etsy commercial. and they wanted to use, part of my story in the commercial. I mean, who's turning that down? I'm not turning that down. Great. You don't know how it's going to be used. You don't know how much of
Right.
they're going to use. You don't know anything like that because they have used clips of my story over the years. The CEO spoke about me in a CNBC interview as an example. You just don't know the impact that you're going to make. I've been to Etsy a couple times. I've done events at Etsy through their Bridge organization, which Bridge actually focuses on the African American sellers that are on Etsy.
Really?
Yes. So Etsy has some very unique aesthetics to it and things that you don't realize until you actually get to see some of it in person, And that's kind of how the commercial came about. Now, I had no idea, really, absolutely no idea that they were going to use so much of me, which was like amazing. I thought, oh, they'll use a hand,
Me at the sewing
me at
machine, the
the
back of
sewing
my
machine,
head.
like a blurb. Like I thought it would just be like, boop. I really didn't know it was going to be, which those two aspects were kind of like one of my favorite parts of the story is when, I fan out the fabric and I'm fluffing a customer's dress where you see me bend down and I'm really fluffing the dress while they're shooting it. And it was a real customer's dress. It was that was Melanie will be excited when she hears this interview. It was Melanie's dress
Awesome.
in that story. And then the fabric that I'm fanning is from House of Mommy Water, which is an Etsy seller. I love her.
Yes,
She's
I know
amazing.
her. I've used her
She's
fabric as
amazing.
well.
I love
She's
her.
so sweet too. She's just a nice person.
Yes, yes. So, and I think the reason why my story tends to get embraced so much by Etsy is because I'm an Etsy seller and I'm an Etsy buyer. And not everyone does that. I buy and I sell in the platform that I sell on. So I utilize other Etsy sellers through my whole building of, what I do from anything. It could be a pattern, it could be the labels that I make, that I put inside my clothes. Those originated from an Etsy seller. So every aspect of what I do at some point has a woman involved or a small brand involved, whether it be my jewelry, a fascinator. It's at some point in any design or styling that I do, it's from a woman or a very small business. So being involved in that commercial and seeing it come like that was just really, I was crazy like everybody else, like, oh my God, I can't believe it. Because I really thought they was just going to use a hand. I had no idea. They don't tell you. They just say we're going to use you, and then you don't know how it's going to be. So it was definitely it was amazing that it's almost like you're taking your customers and the people you work with you in this moment because they're in it too. That's her fabric. That's my customer's dress. You know what I mean? So it's just it was definitely amazing. But that's really how it came about. It started from a seller story that was done a couple of years ago, and then they just, as amazing as editing is, and then they created this commercial and used clips of my story inside of it, and that's kind of how that came to be.
That really is fantastic. That is and the way that you talk about it as a way to bring your customers with you and to bring your suppliers with you, and that you have this kind of really comprehensive approach to your brand. That like you said, you sell on Etsy, but you also buy your things from Etsy, and so you are supporting small businesses even as you are building different collections over the years and things like that. And I definitely see that, like some of the collections, like the names of your collections, that you really are very interested in this kind of community spirit.
Mhm.
And so I wondered if you could talk a bit about what does it mean to build a collection? How do you transition from year to year or season to season? Are you interested? Like I know you were saying before, how you start with the fabric and let the fabric tell the story. But over the years, you've had so many different collections. Do you have like a favorite? Do you have, I don't know. I don't know if that's possible for a designer to say, I like this one thing I've done more than another thing that I've done. How do you
I
even
know I can say
tell?
that.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I think my dresses are my favorite. Now I do have some dresses. I have one dress that I don't know. I just feel dreamy in it. And that's my MK Bell dress, which means wife. And that particular dress is made out of that starburst dashiki fabric. It's got an open back. It has lace. The skirt is just dumb big. It's just bigger than big. It's I don't know. It's just that dress is just everything to me. And that was like a my 20 out of my 2016 fall collection. It's just dreamy. When you put it on, it's just dreamy. And that's the only way I can describe it. You just feel like a African queen in it. And so yeah, I do have favorites. I think every collection I have a piece that I love. Last spring's collection was my kimono. I love that thing. I love it. I love the way it was shot. I love the colors. I just love the whole thing. Uh, and then
And what?
I had, I think last spring, my polka dot jumpsuit. The most
Yes.
fabulous, comfortable. I mean, you could go shopping in that thing. You can go to brunch in that thing. Like it was just comfortable. The pants leg is all super wide, so you're not constricted. But you throw it on and you look like you done, took a million hours to get ready. You did nothing. Put it on.
I,
Um,
and I'm looking at the polka dot now. I think this is a photo shoot, and you're sitting in
in a red
like a this.
chair.
Yes, yes, that's the one. That's the one.
Yeah,
Can we talk a bit about your photography? And you said
sure.
that your photographer is a wizard, because he makes you look really tall. And
Yes, he has.
so, yes, that is he definitely does make you look tall because I am now today years old learning that you are not tall. Um, but like it's so many different. I always know that it's you, whether you're wearing like this mix, this pant blouse mix, and you have
Mm-hmm.
like you're standing on a ladder. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
really industrial, or it could be really kind of organic, where you're out like standing on a bridge or sitting on a bench or in a car. Like, how do you? Like, what is your philosophy around your photo shoots, or how you are expressing all these looks through photography?
Well, early on, when I first got started, my coworker modeled some of my pieces, and she had one of her photographers, Eric Levine, who's based out of Massachusetts, shoot me as a pay it forward type of thing. And so when he did that, I realized how important photography was because every single item that he had shot, he did 3 pieces, 2 dresses, and a skirt that sold out. And that's kind of what made me say I'm gonna have to invest in like real photography. But I was a little brand. It's not like I felt like I couldn't afford a model. And so I figured I'll use myself. I'm always available and I'm free.
That's right.
So that's kind of how that part of it. I used to use another photographer named Ricky Allen in my beginning days. Um, Amazing photographer as well. Amazing. And now I use Adiron Mother Sill. They're both on Instagram, so you can always follow them, check out their work. But with Adiron, I'm usually the thinker. I'm always like, where can I shoot? Where can I shoot? Where can I shoot? Type of thing. So I'm always grinding on where we're gonna do on my next photo shoot. Where is it gonna be? I did kind of feel I don't really like, or I don't feel as comfortable shooting inside on flat backgrounds. It just feels very weird to me. Um,
Okay.
So I tend to like to be outside. I like to be in parks and bridges and things like that. That my last spring shoot was actually in a B&B in Brooklyn. You would
Yes.
never
Oh,
know that.
wow.
You would never think that was in Brooklyn. So I rented the B&B with approval from the owner, and I did my photo shoot in it, and I loved it. It was very, first of all, I stayed in the B&B after, so that was great. And but it had
A
a life.
working
It was,
vacation.
yes, I needed it. It has such a lifestyle feel. I feel like I like that blogger look, that lifestyle blogger look. I really like that look. I just, there's something about that look that I feel just gives the clothes a more real life approach to it, which is probably why I don't particularly feel comfortable in like flat backgrounds. I feel like my clothes just tend to do more. Like I feel like if I was in that kimono standing on a white background, you'd have been like, okay. But yet I'm in the kimono and I'm sitting on the steps, or I'm in the kimono and I'm sitting on the bed. I don't know, it just made more sense to me. It just interprets better to me. And Adamon, he does make me look tall. He actually does make me do things that I'm like, what? I'm not, what? I gotta sit on that ledge,
Sit
you
on this
know?
bed.
Yeah. I gotta stand on the edge of the rock thing by the waterfall. Listen, he
In
does.
these shoes.
Yes, and then they laugh because I want to squat down first and then stand up because I feel like that's going to create some level of balance for me. Um, he he definitely has pushed me, and I guess because I have been using him for so long, I'm so comfortable around him that now it's not, I don't think as heavy about it as I did when I first started out. Because and you have a found appreciation for people who do this as a living, because it's a lot of work. You're standing and changing clothes, and I have great makeup artists. My makeup artist Vanessa. I use her now. She always makes me look extra pretty. I'm like, hey, I drag my friends into it from time to time to help dress me so I don't end up rumpled. Um, so
Right,
it's like,
right.
it's because I'm the model. I can't stand back and look like
That's
other
right.
designers. So it's almost like I rely on the photographer a lot more because he almost has to be my eyes and his eyes too at the same time. Right. And so we just kind of go from there. I do pick out the shoots. My last fall shoot, was at Eisenhower Park, which is in E- East Meadow, Long Island. Sometimes I drag them out my way. Most times I'm shooting in Jersey. Every once in a while I rebel and drag them my way.
And they have to come out to Roosevelt Island.
Yeah, yes. And I did actually, in 2016, I did actually shoot in my room, at my house, by my house, and around my house. And that vintage car that you referred to was my daddy's caddy. That was my father's
Oh
car.
my word.
Yeah. So, which I will forever love that shoot because it was like a year before he passed. And he actually got to see me shoot. Because usually I leave, no one sees it, then I come home and then they see the pictures afterwards. But they actually got to watch the whole process, and that was pretty amazing. So it's just a combination of uh, looking at the clothes and just wanting to be outside, and kind of going from there. So every place is different. There's only one time we've maybe shot in the same place, maybe twice. Other than that, it's someplace different all the time.
Everything looks very different. It all looks very, broad and beautiful, and really just a wonderful sense of style. Now, can you tell us any advice for any emerging designers, people who might not, like might want to know like how to get started, and do they need to go to school? Do they need to, like, what do you think people need to get started along the same kind of path toward designing and building a brand. And I mean, I think that you have such a story of grit and determination, as well as just remarkable skills and creativity. So, like, what would you imagine you could pass on to someone who is where you were, maybe 20 years ago?
I think the biggest thing is to remain focused. Um, I know across the years I would focus on it, not focus on it, leave it, put it down, pick it back up, that kind of thing. So I think that if you know that it's something that you love, definitely focus on it, even if it's just a little bit every day. Don't be afraid to hone your skills and practice the things that you're not that great at. Because the more you do, the better you will be. Stay more true to yourself. I didn't ever try to be something else. I just kind of stayed true to the things that I liked the most, and kind of went from there. And I feel like that organic love for it is what helps other people love it, and they see that authenticity. I think that's really a big thing. Follow people that you admire, because they can, whether they are able to give an encouraging word, or they're able to, even in just them sharing themselves to their followers, there's things that you can learn. Consistency is really, really important, whether it's consistently sewing or consistently posting, or create things that on calendars for yourself. Like, if every Tuesday you want to be able to reach out to your followers and you feel like you want to say something, create a special day to do certain things so that you're able to be consistent. I know I want to wear head wrap on Wednesday for Wrap It Wednesday, so I'm consistent. I like to do Talk Tuesday and just share something that might motivate somebody, or on a Monday, or Thursdays or throwbacks, and so on Friday, So if you do things that are consistent, what you want to present, you're able to build a cohesiveness. And I think that is definitely important, especially with how everything, the algorithms are so difficult now. It was probably a lot easier when I started than they are now, but that consistency that I built then helps now. If you don't start that way, you're not going to finish that way. So those are the things that I think are the most important. And be careful who you share your dream with. Be mindful. If don't share everything with someone who you know is not going to encourage you. Keep it to your chest, because it's your gift, and God gives each of us a gift. It's our more responsibility to him to use it. So don't treat it like treat it like the prize that it is, because he can take that and then turn it into something you never would have imagined. I didn't jump into I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I didn't think that. It just happened that way. And sometimes maybe that's how it should be, or you would talk yourself out of it, I'm not doing that. So don't be afraid, stay that there's going to be things that are scary. There's going to be things that you can't control. There are going to be times where you're going to want to cry. There are going to be highs. There are going to be lows. You're going to want to quit. Facts. You're going to want to quit. I can tell you how many times I want to quit. I can tell you how many times I want to close my Etsy shop. I can taste the quit. Don't quit. If I quit, I wouldn't have been in the Etsy commercial. I wouldn't have had my Etsy shop, because I would have closed it because I felt like quitting and I was tired. And here we are, you see? So just when it feels, because sometimes quitting can feel so tangible that you will quit. Don't quit anyway. And that's the best advice I can say, because there's going to be times that you could taste it. You could taste it. You could envision, okay, if I stop, this is what I'll be doing. Don't stop. Because you just don't know when the corner is going to turn.
That's right.
We are in the middle of a pandemic. I wanted to quit 6 months ago, 3 months ago. And I have made more money in the pandemic than I made all of last year. What if I quit?
Wow.
So, and I wanted to quit. I'm no lies told. I was just going to be like, you know what? I'm done.
That's it.
That's it. I'll just solve for myself. I don't have time for this. It's not going the way I want. I'm tired. Everybody's buying clothes for $5. They think my clothes should be $5. It's not possible. I can't do that. I
And it
just
turns
wanted
out
to.
you don't have to, and you don't have to.
Right. But you feel so frustrated that you're almost like you're losing control. It's almost like I really felt like I was watching it die in front of me. And that was just so painful that I was like, I'm just gonna quit because I can't watch it. I just can't watch it just decline and die in front of me. Like it's almost like a baby. Like I'm doing everything I can to resuscitate the baby, to care for the baby, to nurture the baby, but the baby's still getting sick and the baby's still dying. And I'm like, well, I'm just gonna quit. But I didn't. So the best advice I could give is that. And pray, because entrepreneurship without some sort of spiritual sustenance, you will quit. Because you got to have something outside of yourself that's going to
pull you along.
Other than that, I mean, the ride is just like the top of the roller coaster, and you keep hitting the top and dropping at 85, 90 miles an hour, and you ain't got no control. So
wow,
that would be my best.
Well, on that note, I just want to thank you so much for this conversation. And I mean, I feel like this has been quite a word, especially about hanging in there, about consistency, about surrounding yourself with people who aren't going to push you down when you already feel down.
Mm-hmm.
Having people that are going to help to lift you up, and also just believing in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And not quitting even when you can taste it. That when you said I could taste the quit, I was like, oh my gosh, I have been there. And I'm sure many people have. And so thank you so much for this. Now tell us where we can find you on the socials so people who are not yet following can follow you.
Okay. On Instagram, my Instagram is Lily's Creations. That's LILIS Creations _ LILI814. On Facebook, it's Lily's Creative Design. And I'm on Etsy, which is www.liliCreations.etsy.com. And I also have my own website, which is www.lili-girl.com. And that's where you can follow me, shop with me, find me. I try to be very responsive. You can always hit me up in my DM if you have questions. I'm available.
Thank you so much. This has been really great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It's been an absolute joy, Michael.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Stitch Please podcast, the official podcast of Black Women Stitch, the sewing group where Black Lives Matter. There are a variety of ways that you can support the program, and you're doing it right now. By listening to the podcast, it does help us grow. Another way to do that is to rate the podcast, review it, subscribe to it. All of these things are ways that you can support the podcast without having to spend any money at all. If you would like to spend some money to support us, there are ways to do that as well. You can make direct donations to our Patreon site for monthly contributions, as well as one-time contributions to PayPal, Cash App, or Venmo. And finally, we have another cute, very adorable way for you to support the Black Women Stitch project. It's a pin, a PIN enamel lapel pin that's very cute. It's about 2 inches wide and 1.5 inch tall, and it's of the Black Women Stitch logo. And that is $15 with free shipping to the U.S. And so if you drop $15 in the PayPal, Venmo, or Cash App accounts, and then send me your email, no, not email, if you send me your mailing address to my email, either at blackwomenstitch@gmail.com, or you send me a direct message on the Black Women Stitch Instagram page, we will put the pin in the mail to you. Again, free shipping, $15 for the pin, and all of this goes to support the Black Women Stitch Project. Thank you again for joining us this week. Come back next week and we will help you get your stitch together.